Imagine learning a language by repeating short dialogues again and again and again and again and again until the words become automatic. There's no grammar rules, no explanation, just repetition, repetition, drilling, drilling, and like rapid fire responses all the time. This became known as the audiolingual approach. And today, let's have a look at audiolingualism in this episode. Let's think about where it came from, how it works, and how it shaped a lot of modern language teaching. We still use some of audiolingualism today. So let's start then by thinking about the origins and the background of this method. Audiolingualism actually emerged in the United States in the 1950s, but its roots were actually in World War II in something called the Army Specialized Training Program. This was created in 1942, where soldiers needed to speak foreign languages quickly, so intensive oral training programs were developed. After World War II, universities became quite interested in this method and in an oral focus to language learning. So the method became known as oral or structural approach. And in 1964, Professor Nelson Brooks introduced the term audiolingualism. The goal was to speak automatically and accurately through structured practice. Let's have a little think then about the theoretical foundations of this method. So first of all, let's think about language theory. So audiolingualism was based on American structural linguistics. So language was seen here as a system of patterns made up of sounds, of grammatical structures and vocabulary. So speech was the primary focus of this method and writing came later on. How about learning theory then? So the method actually drew on behaviourist psychology, especially the work of B.F. Skinner. So learning was viewed as habit formation through stimuli, response, and reinforcement as well. So correct responses were strengthened and errors were avoided to prevent forming bad habits of some kind. So for this method, several laws of learning were influential, such as frequent practice, intensive exposure, and reinforcement of successful responses. So this view shaped everything that happened in the classroom. So how did audiolingualism work in the classroom? So first of all, let's think about syllabus. So audiolingualism used a structure-based syllabus. Linguists carried out contrastive analysis, comparing learners' first language with the target language that they were learning to predict likely errors. So here we're thinking about languages being separate, so L1, L2, L3, etc. Grammatical structures were graded from simple to complex, and vocabulary was really tightly controlled. In terms of the lesson itself, an audiolingual lesson followed a clear pattern. So there's a number of steps. Step number one was the model dialogue. So students listened to a short dialogue containing the key structures for the lesson. Step number two was repetition. Students here repeated the dialogue in chorus and individually. Step number three was memorization. Learners memorize the dialogue line by line. Step number four was substitution and variation. So the teacher would change key words and students had to adjust the dialogue. Finally, step number five was pattern drills. Drills were really popular in audiolingualism, so learners practiced the structures intensively over and over again. So audiolingualism used many types of drills, including repetition, substitution, and also transformation drills as well. So let me give you an example of what this would look like. So an example drill would be something like this. So the teacher would say, he is walking, and the students would repeat. The teacher would then say, change it to she, and the students would have to say, she is walking. The teacher would then say, okay, now make it the past tense, and the students would say, she was walking. So the purpose was to develop an automatic control of basic structures. How about the classroom? What was it like to be in an audiolingual classroom? Lessons were really highly controlled, and students responded quickly in the target language. So this idea of immediacy was really important, and it also meant immediate correction was essential. So other things that were used were things like tape recorders and language labs, which provided so-called native speaker models. Let's think then about the strengths and limitations of this method. So if we think about the strengths, audiolingualism provided clear, practical techniques. It offered strong pronunciation practice and reliable methods for teaching basic patterns. It really suited teachers who needed structured lessons and systems that emphasized accuracy. So if you were about accuracy, then audiolingualism was for you. However, let's also think about its limitations. By the end of the 1960s, English language teaching was changing a lot, and a lot of significant problems emerged in terms of audiolingualism. So students could repeat patterns, but they still kind of struggled to communicate in real situations. Vocabulary was pretty limited, and actually a lot of dialogues that emerged out of this method were artificial, or they certainly felt artificial. Furthermore, the students just found the constant repetition kind of just boring and even stressful. The final nail in the coffin maybe for audiolingualism as a method in itself was Noam Chomsky, who challenged the method's theoretical foundations. This all contributed to the rise of communicative approaches. And if you know more about communicative language teaching, you can go and watch our episode on that. Okay, finally then let's think about the legacy and the relevance for today. So audiolingualism is not used in its pure form today, but elements of it still remain. So drills can still be seen widely, and they still have a lot of use when you're trying to teach pronunciation. It can also help teach intonation and also build like an automatic control of simple structure. And those automatic controls, or we could call it automaticity, are really important when someone is learning a language. So understanding audiolingualism is important to understanding the whole evolution of TESOL methods. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and we will see you in the next episode of TESOL Methods Explained with TESOL with Mickey and Ida. Thank you so much. Give us a like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.